Hello, welcome to another week's episode of my Trippl3 Cybersecurity Roundup. My name is Clinton Walker. Thank you for joining. In this week's episode, I'll continue the theme of providing 3 cyber breaches, 3 sets of controls, and 3 takeaways for stakeholders and business owners. And the first breach I want to talk about today is one that is it's called Rituals, which is a huge cosmetic brand based in the Dutch region. And it is said that attackers have stolen information of undisclosed amount. However, this focuses mainly on their MyRitual database, which is their customer loyalty program database. Now, if you recall, Ritual is a huge company. They've got over 12,000 employees, 4,800 luxury brands across 33 countries. Now, the database was breached as a result of an unauthorized download and exfiltration of data. Now, the data involved here in this particular breach involves customer email addresses, date of birth, addresses, employees' addresses, and email addresses as well. So the whole aspect of their database in terms of credentials and profile of users from customer and employees perspective has been breached. Now, the risk here and the impact here for them is customer trust, downstream phishing attack, and impersonation, plus fines from the regulators as well. So what are some of the countermeasures that could be put in place here if you're in this space or your competitor, or they may have had it in place but it wasn't strong enough? Rotation of keys are very important as it relates to API keys, database keys, and credentials, and make sure that all those credentials that you use to log into and authenticate and verify identity in the cloud environment is also stored securely. Store credentials in dedicated secret vaults that is monitored, tracked, and have alert mechanism and audit log on those systems as well. And also, which is very important as it relates to integration, revoke and reissue third-party integration keys and make sure that those are reviewed on a regular basis, especially as it relates to apps, OAuth that grants access, and especially as well packaging and keys and registry tokens. Those things need to be investigated as well and reviewed on a regular basis. That's the first breach. The second one I want to cover off is a US company. It is a huge insurance giant in the US, which is called Kemper. Their breach was as a result of a previously compromised Salesforce account, which is now used in this particular attack. And it is said that Shiny Hunters, which is a very well-known attack group, or a cyber attacker group, hacking group, so to speak, they have posted the data on the dark web after negotiations broke down, and it is said that they've allegedly stole 29 gig of data from the company's Salesforce account, which would also equate to 13 millions worth of records for that particular company. Now, the Salesforce account is being investigated, as well as all the other touch points and integration points at Kemper. But the documents and the data that's specifically involved in this breach included Stripe payment logs, customer names, the amount and their transaction history, names of employees, names of the customers, email addresses that was in that database as well. So the breach and the impact here for these users are exposure to potential phishing attack downstream, employee impersonation or customer impersonation, and also extortion, because again, if they've got email addresses, contact details, addresses, they can also commit fraud on your behalf as well and pretend as if they are you doing those transactions. There's also a risk of regulatory fines in this aspect as well, which needs to be looked at, and they need to make the necessary notification, because the insurance sector is highly regulated, and they have something that's called breach notification that they need to notify the regulators when something like this occur. The countermeasures here are hardening of Salesforce account access, and make sure that multi-factor authentication is used across the board, and any endpoints and any resources that people are accessing, review and limit integration tokens and make sure that those are reviewed on a regular basis, run access reviews on vendors, and security assessment must also be included in those assessment that takes place across the board as it relates to integration and working with third parties. The other breach I want to cover is Vercel. Vercel is a cloud platform that developers use to push codes to do development on, and it is said that attackers claim to have breached its system and attempting to sell those credentials on the dark web. And this breach actually occurred via a third-party AI platform by the name of Context AI. And the likely breach here stems from the compromise of the third-party AI tools, and it is said that the Google Workspace OAuth application was compromised, and that's where they managed to get into the system. The data as well was unencrypted, and it says that Vercel's employee information, which consists of over 580 data records containing names, addresses, telephone numbers, and email addresses, and account activity timestamp, was also involved in that breach as well. Based on my research, it is also said that they were in negotiation for $2 million ransom. Not sure if that's been complied with, but I'll provide further update as I learn about the development on this particular breach. However, some of the takeaways and countermeasures that you could put in place here is around encryption, because he mentioned that there were some data that was at rest that wasn't encrypted, but the theme here is that you should encrypt data in transit and data at rest, so that if the attacker were to get that data, it's of no use to them unless they have some really powerful decryption and encryption tool that would be able to break that encryption. Manage interfaces and enforce strong admin credentials on all interfaces. So again, multi-factor authentication comes into play here. Implement robust monitoring and alerting on all accounts to make sure that you're tracking user activities and checking and looking for anomalies. That's the takeaway there for those particular three breaches. So what are some of the takeaways for you as a business owner or a stakeholder? Make sure that you provide and carry out adequate vetting and assessment of third parties that you're working with, and any integration that you do around, whether that be tooling, partners, or systems, make sure that you've done some kind of assessment, whether that be a penetration testing, audit, or some kind of validation to make sure that that integration is coming in clean, and those integration are also reviewed on a regular basis. Review keys and update keys on a regular basis as well, because those keys, once they're compromised, they tend to have root access to a lot of powerful features within systems. So make sure that those are rotated and you have monitoring, auditing, and alerting on those systems. That's it for this week's update. Please stay tuned, follow us on LinkedIn, subscribe to us on YouTube, and visit our website for all things cybersecurity. And I'll see you again next week. Thank you. Bye.